Welcome to the full review of the Wansview K1 surveillance camera. Now we're reviewing this for the purpose of determining if it's suitable for monitoring reptiles in their enclosures. I have high hopes for this because it actually is the only camera I've found that has a temperature and humidity sensor built in, and it displays that information on the video feed. So the first thing you got to do with this camera is set it up onto your network. You can hook it up via cable, Ethernet cable here, which is a nice feature, but most people are probably going to use it over Wi-Fi. I will say going into this that it seems to be a simple process, but it fails a lot. That's the first ding on this product. So we're going to go ahead and add the camera. They do have this nice step-by-step configuration guide here at the bottom. It tells you what to do. So we're going to scan the QR code of the camera, which is located here on the base, at the bottom of the base. There we go. It fills in the admin default password automatically. You can change this, and of course strongly recommend that you do after setting up the camera. And I'm going to give it a name of the albino that it's supposed to monitor. So we're going to go ahead and tap the next button, enter the Wi-Fi password for the network I'm on. Now note that the iPhone must be connected to a 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi password. This will not work with a 5 gigahertz. Here we go on the next step, which is the passing of the password via audio tones. Now that we've got the camera hooked up, we can take a look at the feed. Okay, right there. I will say that the picture on this camera is very good. I would even say it's better than the Cam that I've been using. So that's certainly a plus in its favor. Now you can see in the upper corner here, this is why this camera is unique. So we've got 27 degrees Celsius, and that's about almost 80 degrees. Wow, is it that hot in here? Wow, it must be my light. The humidity is there at 44. Now, the next question is, how accurate is that? Well, let's see. This is the Accurite that most of us agree is one of the better temperature and humidity sensors. And you can see it is typically within a degree of accurate. That's another good thumbs up for this product. Now let's take a look at the camera controls. The ones up here in the upper left corner, first two, are only usable by pan and tilt and zoom cameras. So those do not apply to this camera at all. The little hamburger menu button, the two light bulbs are actually a nice feature. You can turn the infrared LED light on and off. I would probably leave it off because I use an external LED IR light source in my setup. So this would prevent overexposure from the front-facing LED. The preset button is again specifically for the pan and zoom cameras, so we don't use that here at all. The other controls are fairly standard. You've got the ability to flip it either direction here in the upper right. We've got the ability to take a snapshot. We've got the ability to record from the live feed onto our phone. The camera has a micro SD card. It got the ability to record there. Here's something I do like a great deal that the Cam lacks, and that is the ability to control contrast and brightness of the image. I also like the fact that we can choose our resolution. If you're in a slow Wi-Fi situation, you might be able to see a smoother picture. So that's a good feature as well. So we're going to take a little look at some of the settings we have here. Under Advanced, the SDTF card schedule recording. This is an important feature, the ability to be able to record things to the camera. You can then look at what happened while you were away. I had a heck of a time getting this to work. I believe what I discovered is that even though the manual says you can put a 64 gig card in here, it didn't recognize any of the 64 gig cards I put in, but it did recognize the 32 gig card that I put in after I manually formatted it on my computer. Your mileage may vary. Once I got it working, it works fine. Now this button here at the bottom, SDTF card recording, that you turn on if you want continuous recording of everything that happened. But with ball pythons particularly, just sitting still for hours a day, I would not turn that on if it were me. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the alarm setting. So the first thing you do is set what you want it to track. If you want it to track motion, and you can set a temperature range and a humidity range for an alarm. So, you know, for our ball python, our humidity would be between 50 and 60%. If it went outside of that range, we'd get an alert. This does not allow you to choose between Celsius or Fahrenheit, so you have to set this up entirely in Celsius. We want to be alerted if the ambient temperature fell below, let's say, 80 Fahrenheit. That would be around 26, 27 Celsius. And we'd want to be alerted if we got above, I don't know what, 92, 93, which would be about 33. So we have to tap the little save button here at the top. And then we have to go back into it to see what our actions are going to be. We have a variety of things that can happen. We can have it send us a still photo via email. If you have access to a remote server via FTP, you have the ability to set that up as well. And of course, we have the SD card inside the camera. So now this camera is set up. It's doing its job. I've confirmed that it works fine when you're out and about over a cellular network, and you get the notifications just fine, and you can view the video from anywhere. So far, everything seems to be good for this camera. However, this camera has a fatal flaw, and I'm going to have to set this back a bit so you can see what I'm talking about. The problem with the Wansview is this. You can see it right there. That's hot. I've clocked parts of this casing at 118 degrees. Obviously, that kind of temperature, you would not want to put this inside an enclosure with your animal, especially if it's a snake. You could put it on the outside, but the problem then is that this humidity and temperature sensor is only this long. So you'd have to it would have to be mounted pretty much flush, drill a hole for the lens. You know, you might want to also take it off the base, but you know, I can see that as a possibility. If you want to go to that kind of trouble. So that would be the configuration. You would mount it, drill a hole, like I said, drill a hole for the lens, stick that right up in there. You don't have a lot of control over the angle of view though. That's one issue. Once it's mounted flush, it's mounted. And then you'd have to have a hole of some sort big enough to stick this through, and then come back behind it, probably with some sugru or something to kind of seal around the edge of that. So that is the configuration that might work for you. I also, thought about, if you keep it in, the goal is to keep the animal from coming into contact with the hot surface. Something like this. Again, the problem here is you'd have to drill a hole for the lens that was big enough to, and you'd probably need it as close as possible, or squeeze this, to get it closer. Put a little rubber grommet there to protect from the sharp edges, and that might work enough to, to have a clear view. Or if you don't mind seeing the grid in your picture, that might work as well. But again, the camera's already bulky enough, and this adds a lot more bulk. So this kind of solution, in my view, would only work in a larger enclosure. Here's another sort of, this is a plastic flexible, I think I got it from a craft store. And you could potentially, do something with this, make a little box out of it, or, a tube, and then again, cut a hole for the lens, and this might be a little safer to keep the animal off of it. So my bottom line on this camera is I really like the feature of the temperature and the humidity monitoring, but the fatal flaw on this is the casing temperature, and so for me, this camera is going back to Amazon tomorrow. That's all I have to say on this. I will post another review when I get this replaced with something different. I'm going to try a couple more before I decide that Yeecam is the only way to go. Thanks for watching.